Okay, let me see if I can show you how to actually put this all together. I've got some things a little bit pre-trimmed here, just kind of speed things up, and there is a little bit of trial and error to get this exactly right, but I'll show you the basic gist of it. So the idea behind this is that your zip ties are going to serve as a mounting for the camera. And specifically what happened is I found some zip ties, well I happen to have them, that really fit exactly right for this Runcam Nano 3. So where you can see that this width is just right about the same size of the camera. And then the bottom little feet of it acts as the shelf. Now we just need a way to go ahead and secure that on there, and I happen to have some shrink tubing that works pretty well for that. So the first step then is to go ahead and get some shrink tubing on here, where this is just, and so the shrink tubing is just barely wider than the camera, so it kind of fits on reasonably snug. And so you just kind of get it on there like that. And then the way I have this pre-trimmed, you don't want to do that because you actually want the points of the zip ties to help guide this. And you're going to see me probably struggle here a little bit to get this in without having those little points to guide it. Okay, not too bad. So that slides down there like that. And then you just repeat the process coming from the top, where it's another piece of shrink tubing to come from the top. With the shrink tubing, you actually want to leave this a little bit wider than perfect, because what it does is it kind of slides down, wraps around the camera, and that's fine to have it a little bit, I guess taller rather than wider. But let's see if I can get this on here. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this in frame, which makes manipulating it a little bit harder. But I think I got it on there. Okay. All right, so got that all on there. A little bit off center with the, I won't worry about that now. I'm not going to try and get it perfect, but I'm a little bit off center from the natural fold in the tubing, and so it kind of bowed out a little bit. But I don't need this to look perfect. This is just really going to be an example of how to build this. Then to lock it together, what happens is a zip tie just comes in from up top. And once those zip ties are up top, then everything's locked together. Now obviously I kind of pre-built this and trimmed those, but normally you'd have a bunch sticking out there and you just go ahead and trim it down. When you're doing this, you don't need to jam these down super tight. Just get them on there, because when you tilt this back, that takes the slack of the excess slack. I'm also going to cheat here a little bit where I've got some of these guys in pre-trimmed. So this tubing here is actually going to be a good little bit wider than the zip tie, and you can see how much wiggle there is. It's because we're going to get two of these in there. But the way you kind of figure this out is, when you're actually building, is you kind of bend this stuff forward and you see where you want it to finish up in terms of the length on these. And I happen to kind of work this out a little bit to where this length should be pretty close. Not exact, but close enough to where I can show you the build. I'm just going to trim that up. Hopefully I'm not bumping this camera too much for you. Okay, so we've got our pieces trimmed up. And the way this sits is these go under and these go on top and slide to where they kind of meet. With these bottom ones here, you actually have to kind of rotate them on the frame a little bit because you want them tilted forward. And you can see they just kind of tilt forward pretty easily like that. You want them on there tight enough so that it takes a good little bit of force to get them to rotate forward, but not so much to where, I mean, there's only so tight you can get them, so basically get them as tight as you can. All right, so I said these guys go on top. So you slide your shrink tubing over, and then this will feed in there. My other tubing go? I lose it. Of course I did. There it is. Goes there. And then you just feed in this one on top. Okay. And then so then when you put a little pressure here, that'll slide back together pretty nicely. And once you're sure that you have the angle that you want, you can go ahead and apply some heat to get this to all stay together. Actually, before you apply the heat, you want to go ahead and build. So you want to pull this apart and get all your components in there. And then when you're applying the heat, that's the last step. And I'll show you that and how it comes out. So when you're applying the heat, you basically just want to get this as tilted as far as you want it. And I kind of under trimmed this plastic, the zip tie, but it'll be close enough. So I under trimmed the zip tie. It's a little bit too long, so when I'm pushing it back, it's stopping a little bit before I want it to. But just for kind of showing you this video, I'm just gonna say that that's good enough. And yeah, heat gun is better than a lighter, but the lighter works to kind of just get it heated up. And then just hold it until it cools. And if you want to apply a little bit of molds to it to get the shape that you want, you can put a little mold on it like that as it cools. Just hold it here for just a second. And once it's cool enough, you can just let go of it and it should all stay together. If it doesn't stay, you can just kind of push it back in, apply a little bit more heat, hold it again, and it should be good. All right, there you go. So it may take you a couple of tries to get it exactly right. You can see I maybe didn't trim things quite as perfect as I should have, so it doesn't look as clean as it could, but that's it. And that's how it goes together. And then if you need to work on things, it's actually still, although it's pulled together, if you need to work on it, you can just pull this apart and it comes apart, and you just put on a new piece of shrink tubing, heat it back down, and you're good to go. So that's it. That's the Quad 66 Zip Tie Canopy. Straighten that out a little bit here. There we go. Straighten that out a little bit. And the finished product obviously looks a little better. Looks like that. So some things you can do if you need more room back here is on top of these guys here, you can instead of rolling these forward, you angle them more upward, and then you have more of an arc And so that'll give you a little bit more room, a little bit less structural stiffness, but a little bit more room to build in there. And I think that's about the tips I have for it. Till next time, cheers.